Yes, it is Monday, but don't worry. We're back. You're here in the Trust Tree. We're going to get through this week together. Some massive matchups again this weekend. There's no such thing as a bad slate. Anybody that says that, I think we all know they're absolutely crazy, especially in 2024. But speaking about crazy, David, there could be a crazy fight for getting Dan Mullen to be an offensive coordinator between a couple of schools. I don't want to get too far ahead, but had a little birdie tell me, if you're an Oklahoma fan, don't be surprised if you've seen Dan Mullen roaming the sidelines as the offensive coordinator. But you heard there may be another girl at the party.
There could be some interest in Michigan as well as the offensive coordinator, which honestly, both of these surprised me because I still think Dan Mullen could get a head coaching job if he really wanted one. So I'm not sure why he would just settle into an offensive coordinator role.
Well, I wonder because I think if he could, and again, the year's not done yet. We see Tom Herman get fired from FAU. Stan Drayton got fired from Temple. There's going to be more people that are let go. But do you think maybe this is something where Mullen doesn't want to take a group of 5 job or a lower level Power 4 job? He wants to go be a mercenary hire as an offensive coordinator for 1 year at one of these huge brands that struggled on offense, go in there, blow it out of the water, and then launch himself into the best position possible to maybe go get a big job here as opposed to, because don't you think he would have taken one by now?
I don't know because I don't know him personally, and we've seen these guys before. John Gruden, we talked about the other day, he loved television so much. He turned down multiple NFL jobs before finally he got called back to the game. Some of these guys love TV. It looks like he's having a lot of fun. And I think he's having a lot of fun, too, saying, hey, haha, Florida, you shouldn't have fired me, right? We had kind of a good thing going. When you talk about a lower-level Power 4 job, I still think Dan Mullen, these programs get desperate enough that I think there's a job out there, or there's a job that will open up at the end of the year that he could take with the advent of the transfer portal and NIL money, that he could. Why couldn't he do what Rhett Lashley's doing this year, with SMU? I mean, if you believe in your coaching ability enough, I think there's a job like that does exist, but maybe he just doesn't want to be the head guy. Maybe it's, and I don't know what Bobby Petrino's line of thinking is right now. He's in a different circumstance, but some of these guys might just like being the offensive coordinator, and hey, when my play calling duties are done, I don't have to be the head coach. I don't know.
I mean, look at Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly's a better example.
I think Chip Kelly's a great example of that. Now, I know they're kind of different eras of where they were from a coaching standpoint. We're going to get into Chip Kelly and this Ohio State offense here soon. But Blaine, you look at Dana Holgorsen, right, going to be the OC at Nebraska. When you look at Dan Mullen, if you were an AD of a higher level Power 4, or let's just say Power 4 in general, would you be willing to take a flyer on Dan Mullen?
For sure.
I know FAU would. I know Temple would.
It's funny you bring up Bobby Petrino. I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Mullen's walking to Fayetteville, Arkansas at the end of this year.
As the offensive coordinator?
As the head coach.
As the head coach?
As the head coach. So, I think the Sam Pittman era is over at Arkansas. I think Arkansas fans know that as well. I think Dan Mullen would be a great fit.
He would be a solid hire for them. So are you automatically assuming that they wouldn't hire from within then? Either coordinator.
No. Well, see, this is where I just wonder, and we talked about this earlier when Bobby Petrino got the OC job there. Like, if you're willing to hire him as the offensive coordinator, how are you not willing to hire him as the head coach? Like, I think there's a better chance if Dan Mullen ends up at Arkansas, it's because Bobby Petrino took another job, maybe outside of it, and then, Travis Williams, we'll see what happens with him, and maybe Dan Mullen becomes the OC at Arkansas, or possibly could be the head coach. But I don't think it's a Bobby Petrino, it has no chance to be the head coach, therefore, because there's no way I think Bobby P would stay if they elevated Dan Mullen to be the head coach.
Because he'd call the plays.
Because he'd call the plays.
But not only would he call the plays, but I don't think he'd work for him.
I still don't know how bad Bobby Petrino wants to recruit. He's an older guy.
Wouldn't it be a better case to be the head coach?
I actually think it would
delegate. I don't know. You guys
like Brian Kelly a little bit.
Do you have to recruit more as the head coach or a coordinator?
Well, and that's what separated Nick Saban. Nick Saban recruited as a head coach like he did as an assistant coach. But when it comes down to you want to be as involved as you possibly can. Some guys want to be as involved as humanly possible. Some head coaches want to be kept in the loop on everything. Typically, your head coach is your closer. Is the guy that you bring in on that last in-home visit, or, when you take the kid on the official visit at the place, you go in there and the head coach's door last, he hits the button, the door shuts and all this. Very rarely is your head coach your hardest recruiter, and I think that is something that separated Nick Saban. I think that's something that separates Kirby Smart. Some of these guys are willing to put in that time because they understand the importance of it. Other guys think, listen, like Gus Malzahn, not the most socially adept person when it comes down to recruiting. Not that he's a bad recruiter, but he would much rather have had Carnell Williams and these other guys out there recruiting and then, hey, let me bring you to the big man. So Bobby Petrino, if he could be the head coach, say, I want this quarterback in this class, Hit me up when you need to hit me up. Obviously, we're going to evaluate. It'll go through the channels. I've got to sign off on the offers, but I think it just depends on, the way you look at it. So I think it's easier to recruit, or it's less time-consuming to recruit in the head coach position as opposed to a coordinator, assistant coach, whatever. But again, it really just does depend on the person. So but I want to know if Arkansas fans, would you be okay with Bobby Petrino being the head coach? If you're an Arkansas fan in the chat, if you're an Arkansas fan in the comments, A, do you want Sam Pittman to stay? And then B, would you be fine with Bobby Petrino?
Which, if you could be the head coach at Arkansas, I don't think you'd be the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma or Michigan unless you just want to be a coordinator and not the head coach.
I agree. And we're going to see what happens with, Neil Brown at West Virginia. There's going to be some movement in this offseason. There always is. Last year, there wasn't a ton. I mean, you look at the SEC this year, I think we could possibly get more. Oregon leads the college football Oregon leads the college football rankings for another week. We're going to break down our top 12, which we all know is perfect. Ohio State takes on Indiana in a top 5 showdown we never saw coming. And Florida hopes to replicate success this weekend against the Lane Train and Ole Miss. I'm Jake Crain, and welcome to the Monday Fun Day edition of the greatest sports show in the history of sports and shows, Crain Company. Everybody is bickering about conference strength, bias, which teams are overrated or underrated, and it makes sense because this year has seen more parity than we have in a long time in the sport. But if you take off your allegiance cap and you just look at how each team plays, I do think we can find some legitimate answers. If you're asking which conference has the most elite teams, the answer is somewhat muddy there. There may be no elite teams in college football, but the closest, in my opinion, is Oregon. And if you agree with me on that, it's hard to not say Ohio State is elite as well, considering how their game went on the road at Oregon in a really close loss. So the conference with the most elite teams, I'm going to say is the Big Ten. But the bigger and more important question is which conference has the most depth when it comes to really good teams. Because after the top 4 teams in the Big Ten, the drop-off is pretty evident, not just by record, but by eye test as well. When you look at the SEC, there may not be an elite team. But the odds of Bama, Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, and A&M all just being okay is very low. It's much more likely they're all just really good teams, and when you see the athletes and you use the eye test, that's the conclusion that I come up with. That's also why I think a 10-2 SEC team should get the at-large bid nod over a 10-2 or even an 11-2 team from the Big 12 or the ACC who lost in the conference championship game. We have media members whose whole shtick is either hating the SEC or overblowing how good they are. I find myself somewhere in the middle. And with only 7 at-large bids available in this new format, we have to find a way to navigate who the best teams really are. So is the SEC the best conference with the most elite teams? I say no, but they are the conference with the most quality teams that could actually win in the playoff. Now, please spare me the 9-3 SEC teams getting in because the amount of losses you have does matter. And vying for a 9-3 SEC team to get in is doing too much. But 10-2 is a very different story. So let's argue. Let's have fun doing it. But if we truly want the right teams in the playoff, cut the shtick and the gaslighting, and let's just be honest with ourselves. Speaking about being honest.
Good for you, Jake.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Jake.
It's called the high road.
Yes, sir.
It's called the high road. David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback. My brother, former Western State Colorado wide receiver, Blaine Crain. And listen, we all get accused. People know I'm from SEC country. You are too, really, but you played for a Big Ten team. So my brother's from SEC country. We get accused of, SEC bias this, SEC bias that. But I do think when you look at the way we analyze and we talk about these teams, we're going to call it how we see it. I think when you look at the NFL draft, most of the guys come out of the SEC. Now, some years that's been different, but for the most part, that's been the case. When you look at national championships, the SEC has had more teams win more national championships. But this year, David, when I look at the conferences, I think the Big Ten has the more elite teams, but the SEC has the better quality depth of great teams. Not just because you beat each other in a conference. You can have a bad conference and teams beat each other. But I think, like I said, the odds of all those teams just being average or okay or a little bit below average. I just don't see that line.
Well, thank you for that opening, man. That was awesome. That was like if I were to copy and paste my thoughts, that's probably very similar to what I would have come up with. Now, I love college football, and I enjoy debating the subjective metrics for the college football playoff. I love doing it when it was 4 teams. I like doing it even more when it's 12 teams. I don't tire of that. One thing that does get a little bit frustrating, though, is hearing fans of a certain conference, and it is usually the SEC because of their dominance, basically say that the losses don't matter. Hey, a 5-7 team is better than the best team in another conference. Look, I'm sorry, but we live in a world where a bad Oklahoma State team in the Big 12 beat Arkansas, who beat Tennessee. We live in a world where Vanderbilt beat Alabama this year and lost to Georgia State. Those things actually happened, right? So it's not like the SEC, as dominant as they are, is often a world all by themselves, like they're the NFL and can look down on everyone else. Now, I think we do have to acknowledge that this conference has been the most dominant in college football for the better part of 2 decades. The championships is what I'm leaning on when I talk about that, even more so than having players drafted. And I think that this year, we could have an SEC champion win the national championship, and it may even be an all-SEC affair when you have the at-large bids. That may be very well what happens. But if we're going to have a national postseason, then the other conferences have to matter. Or else, why would you not just want to win the SEC and take no claim in the national championship? Every fan that calls into the show says the opposite, though. They say, we'd rather play in the college football playoff than play in the SEC championship. So clearly, it does still matter to fans of these teams, which is why, moving forward, I'm just going to keep acknowledging this as a 4-team playoff. You win your conference, the objective metrics, you're in. It's a 4-team playoff plus 8 wildcard additions. How about that?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And look, like we said, and Blaine, losses do matter. The amount of losses matters. It's like I tell South Carolina fans. South Carolina, and I know they didn't play great against Missouri, I don't think. I want to give Missouri their flowers like we talked about yesterday. But I think out of all the big games South Carolina's played lately, they probably played their worst overall from a complimentary football standpoint against Missouri. But you can't sit here on one hand and say, you know what, it's whatever the season matters and whoever's the hottest team at the end of the season needs to be in. Well, you can't sit there and say that and then say the whole season matters. Because if you're going to sit here and say South Carolina needs to get in with 3 losses when everybody else has 2 or 1 or 0, then basically what you're saying is the first half of the season doesn't matter. Because there's some teams right now, I'm looking at Kansas. Kansas is looking like the Kansas we thought. But the problem is they're 4-6.
Yeah.
You're not getting in. South Carolina just happens to be at that 3-loss line where I think the cutoff is this year. If there was even more chaos and we had a bunch of 3-loss teams or a couple 3-loss teams that we were going down the pipe and saying this team should be in, South Carolina should for sure be in. But you can't just play well at the end of the year, Blaine. The beginning and the middle of the season matters as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the season matters and the resume matters, but it's hard for me to sit up here and to be honest. I'm not trying to be SEC biased, but I think the SEC is the best conference in football. I would line up the best teams in the SEC with the best teams in the Big Ten and feel comfortable about it. I would line Georgia up with Oregon. I would line Tennessee up with Ohio State and still think right now, look at it, South Carolina is the 7th best team in the SEC. Go look around the nation. What other conference can you say that about? I don't think so. So I do think that Big Ten has 2 elite teams, maybe 3. Maybe 3, we'll see with Indiana. I think Indiana is a good football team, but I do think right now, the SEC is the best conference.
Well, and that's what I was saying. It's that to me, the way I look at the best conference is the quality of depth throughout the conference. That's why the main argument between the Big Ten and the SEC back and forth has been, oh, well, you're top heavy. That's why you're conference. That's all you are is you're just top heavy. When I'm looking at who I think the best conference is, I call it, the college basketball rule, because we get this great thing in college basketball, like the ACC SEC challenge or the Big 12 Big 10 challenge, where all of the teams are a lot of the top teams or most of the good teams in that conference for that one day play the other team from the other conference, right? If it's ACC and SEC, they're the teams that play each other. And we've actually heard that floated in football too, as well. I think that'd be something that'd be fantastic until we get to a Super League and they're all in the same conference. So I do think the SEC overall is the best conference. But I can sit here on one hand, I can walk and chew gum at the same time and say, I think the Big Ten has probably the most logical elite team in Oregon, right? Not just because they're undefeated, but the Big Ten, once you get past 4 and you get to the Minnesotas and you get to the Rutgers and you get to Maryland, I think that's where the separation really, really changes.
Let me say this, like on the South Carolina point, no one in the country right now wants to play South Carolina.
Hell no.
They could line up right this second with anybody and go toe-to-toe with them. But let me just take it from the SEC's own metrics and objective standings for when it comes to conference champion. The losses clearly matter to not make the SEC championship.
Yep.
South Carolina's playing better than a lot of teams in the conference, even some of the teams that are above them at the top. Why doesn't the SEC just automatically put them in the SEC championship game?
Yeah.
Because the losses matter. So if you can't even make your own conference championship game because of several key losses you had earlier in the year, why should you sit there and beg and politic a subjective committee at the end of the year to put you in if there are other 10-2 losses, if there are other 10-2 teams in your own conference?
Yeah, and that's not hating on South Carolina. That's just telling the truth.
Actually, it's a nod to South Carolina because of how good they're playing that they're even involved in the conversation at the 9-3 spot, assuming that they were to win out. Look, beating Clemson's still going to be a tall task
for sure.
Even finish 9-3, but I mean, look, congratulations to everything Shane Beamer's put. I find
super happy.
The conversation fascinating, though.
It is. All right, let's get to the chat. Remember, the phone lines are going to open 2:45 p.m. Central. We want to hear from you. Let's try and make the calls 30 to 45 seconds. We're going to have a lot of calls today because we want to hear from you all across the country and get your opinion so we can continue to have a fun debate.
Let's go to Eric D. What's up, man? He says the SEC is about 8 teams deep. Vanderbilt will probably beat Penn State in Indiana, and that is just my opinion.
I think it's unfair to say that about really both of those teams. Not that, if they played 10 times, Vanderbilt couldn't win one, maybe two. And I've got questions about Penn State when it comes down to the big dogs, but Vanderbilt's not a big dog. Actually, Penn State is great at beating the Vanderbilts. That's really all they've done. And that's one of the reasons why Penn State fans are upset. It's not that they can't beat Vanderbilt or they can't beat, Maryland. It's they have struggled against Ohio State and Michigan. Now, as far as Indiana, we're going to get into this here in a little bit. We're going to know a lot more this weekend, but I feel like we got some pretty good footing on who they are. I want to say before we get into that, because we got some really good stuff.
Well, I'd 100% get on board with the Vanderbilt could potentially beat Penn State, as long as everyone else is willing to get on board with, say, like a USC could potentially beat LSU.
Well, Penn State.
Oh, wait, hold on. That one actually happened earlier this year.
Yeah, I know. It's a good point.
Right?
It's a good point.
Let's go to Walt. What's up, brother? He says GA has played more ranked teams than Oregon, Penn State, Miami, Texas, and Indiana combined.
Yeah.
Ranked? Who ranked them? Who ranked them?
Not me, David.
Well, it's
actually we did, but
well, we're about to as we get in our rankings.
Actually, I lied.
I will say though, regardless, I think we can look at Georgia's schedule and be like, yeah, okay, like that's one of, if not the toughest. I mean, you look at the road that Georgia had to go through. You look at really Florida, too. I mean, you want to put them up there. Not that those are the only tough schedules. I mean, there's some we can look at in the Big Ten, and you're like, golly, there's a slate that a couple teams had. Michigan State has one that is absolutely
Georgia Tech.
Brutal. Georgia Tech is one that's absolutely brutal.
But again, does it get updated at the end of the season? I'll give you an example. We all sat here for a year and looked at Florida's schedule and said, my goodness, and the way that it finishes, and you have to open with Miami and you have to close with Florida State, who went undefeated last year. Florida State's one of the worst teams in college football. Does it get updated a bit after Florida State is so bad, or does it not get updated?
See, that's why I think you shouldn't count ranked wins until the end of the regular season.
Sure.
I think that's why, I've always thought that because obviously, and look, that doesn't mean that teams don't evolve throughout the year. Some teams look at South Carolina, we just talked about. Some teams are playing better earlier in the year and play worse later in the year and vice versa. But that's why I think before we get into this team has 4 ranked wins and this team has 2 ranked wins, I think we need to get to the end of the book until we start saying that, because it's such a moving target and teams can go from way up to way down, from way down to way up. That's why I like doing it at the end of the year.
All right, let's go to Casey Downs. What's up, man? He says if South Carolina beats Clemson and Clemson/A&M win their conferences, then South Carolina should get in the playoff.
I don't think that's true. That's again, you're changing the argument. So again, I don't think Clemson's getting in the ACC championship. We'll see what happens these last couple weeks. I mean, Miami's got to play Syracuse. You had a great thread today on X, David, about some of the most consequential games coming down the pipe that everybody needs to check out. I don't agree with that. I mean, Georgia beat the shit out of Clemson. So that Clemson win, again, I understand if you're a South Carolina fan, I get it. You are going to look in the best prism that you possibly can, and you want your team to get in. I get that. I understand that. But if we're going to be logical about what happens throughout the season, you lost 3 times. All right? And we'll get back to there are 3 ranked games. Let's wait till the end of the year before we say that. But nobody is questioning. Nobody wants to play South Carolina right now. But we can say that on one hand and realize they're 9-3 on the other hand. And beating the third team out of the ACC, who's not going to make the ACC championship most likely, I don't think should usurp anything else that has happened.
All right, let's go to Eric D. Apparently, this guy's a genius. He says, this guy has no clue what he's talking about. Bama whipped Wisconsin, but Oregon struggled with Wisconsin, so who's actually elite?
Yeah, I mean, but we can play that game.
Like, you can, again, like,
Roll
you're going to troll, Eric, if you're going to troll, I say this all the time, at least be smart. I appreciate you watching the show. I really do. It helps, pays our bills. But that doesn't mean I can't call you a dumbass for saying stupid things. You can use that example all over college football. All over it. Bama lost to Vanderbilt. Texas barely beat Vanderbilt. Nobody is saying that Oregon is a perfect team. But in a world of college football where we are looking for an elite team, Oregon just got done playing 8 straight weeks of conference play, dog, without a bye. So, Eric, do this. If you're so smart, why don't you start a show? Why don't you start one and see if anybody pays attention to it? Because with you using this stupid transitive property, you are going to get laughed out of the room, dog. I may not be right 100%, but I'm also not an idiot. So be better.
Well, again, like they're talking about South Carolina and Georgia on the last 2 examples. Why can't those teams even make their own conference championship?
It's Eric can't answer that, but Eric's got all the answers.
It's just about who had like the most recent great win. You're even locked out of your own conference championship, which the winner gets an automatic qualifier. You get an automatic.
Yeah, listen, dog, you can't think you're going to date Ariana Grande when your wife that's a 7 cheated on you with the UPS driver, dog. Like, that's not how this works. That's just, what an idiotic comment.
All right, let's go to Mike and him. God, I love Mondays. He says, here's the difference. SEC teams number 3 through 10 would be favored versus any other conference corresponding teams number 3 through 10.
And that is quality of depth. And listen, we can look at, book.
They'd be favored by Vegas
by
to win
Vegas
the game?
is what I'm guessing.
Like Alabama was favored against Michigan to win.
Yeah, and look, we can go down that road. But I think it's a quality of depth argument. We're looking at what conference is best. All right, one more and we got to move.
All right, big shout out to UPS drivers. Let's go to Mr. MX. What's up, brother? He says, hey, guys, I love what you're saying right now. Would you put a South Carolina team over a 10-2 Colorado team?
Well,
again, they won't be 10-2.
They won't be 10-2 because if Colorado ends up 10-2, they're in the Big 12.
They're going to play in the conference championship.
I think maybe the question you're asking is, would you put a 9-3 South Carolina team over a 10-2 Big 12 team that didn't make the conference championship? Yes. But I don't think that's what the argument's going to come down to. Mm-hmm. And really, we're talking about, the SEC and the Big Ten here, because there's a very high likelihood, especially now that BYU lost that game, that the Big 12 and the ACC are only going to get one team in. And I think if we can all agree on something, is that the SEC and the Big Ten are better than the Big 12 and the ACC. The real argument is, who do you think is a better conference, the ACC or the Big 12?
I was going to $2 donation from TJ. What's up, man? He says, so, hey, Eric, so Georgia State can beat Alabama.
Yeah, because they beat Vanderbilt. Eric, I'm saying you're about to get clowned, dog. You don't.
He already is.
Here's the thing, and I appreciate you watching, and I'm all for dissent. But if you're going to come in here and say stupid-ass things on this show, you can get away with it on other shows. On this show, we will drag you through the streets while the peasants point and laugh at you,
Nobody's
brother.
safe at all.
Yeah, nobody's safe. But if you want to make yourself as safe as possible, all right, you need to make sure you're taking care of your health and being responsible. And right now, you can take advantage of Responsible Man's early access Black Friday sale and get 60% off your order. What is Responsible Man? Well, this ain't your grandpa's Centrum. Okay, it's a multivitamin that is packed with 33 key ingredients that support your immune system, sharpen your brain, and keep your heart and your muscles strong. Plus, it's a Daily Wires Ventures company, so you know those vitamins are made right here in the USA. All right, it's not coming over here from China and Russia. It's the good old USA, and you know how we do it. No cheap imports, no outsourcing. All right, just like, know what you're thinking. Jake, I eat my Wheaties, I do push-ups, I ate a banana last Thursday, but let me tell you something. You play like you practice, and if you're not giving your body the fuel it needs every single day, you're not ready for game day. So like I said, head over to responsibleman.com, use code BOOSTER at checkout, but hurry, this deal will not last long. Remember, America needs strong men, and strong men start with Responsible Man. So get your responsibility up. Go to use code BOOSTER, responsibleman.com, get that 60% off. All right, let's get into our rankings here, guys. The perfect top 12 in college football. David, hey, how about you, for the people on audio, how about you give them the top 12 and the first 4 out?
Top 12, number 1, Oregon. Number 2, Buckeyes. Remember, their only loss on the road at Oregon by 1 point. Number 3, Indiana right now undefeated. They're going to go to the Horseshoe. So we're going to get a 2 and 3 matchup in our poll this week. I think 2 and 5 will be the national ranking where Indiana is. Texas 4, Notre Dame right now 5. Again, the great win over Texas A&M, but you lost to Northern Illinois.
Yep.
Right now they're 5, which would mean they're hosting in South Bend. And really that's the highest they could possibly be ranked when the bracket comes out because they can't win their conference, obviously. 6, Penn State right now, only lost to the Buckeyes. Alabama 7, Georgia 8, Ole Miss 9, Tennessee 10, with Miami with that 1 loss right now at 11 and Texas A&M at 12. Do you want me to break down 7 through 10?
Yeah, can you tell everybody why? So, because this was the hardest part, but we had the easiest outcome because the work's kind of done for you.
All right, so everybody listen here closely because I only want to have to say this once. I know it's complicated. There's a log jam with these 2-loss SEC teams right now, and there is absolutely no way to square it because they've all beaten up on everybody. They've all beaten up on each other, and they all have 1 additional loss. Texas A&M a little bit different right now because they have the 1 conference loss to South Carolina, as the fan was talking about earlier, but they also have that other out-of-conference loss, which is to Notre Dame. So leave them out of it for 1 second because mostly I'm concerned with Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. Here's how we did it because there's no order you can put them in to make everybody happy since they all beat each other in a head-to-head
squad.
Here's the way it would work out right this second for the SEC tiebreaker rules. And I'm going to bring it up from the SEC's website. Head-to-head competition. We talked about this with Matt Moscona. You have to go to the next point because they all have the same record in the SEC. Record versus common conference opponents. You go down to the next one. Essentially, you get to D, where it's cumulative conference winning percentage of all conference opponents among the tied teams. So basically what that means is you add up the wins and losses for every opponent in the conference that these 4 teams would have played. You add that up and you divide it so that you get a percentage. Alabama right now would lead that with a 53%. I guess you could call it a strength of schedule.
That's what we'll call it.
Georgia right now, 45% would be second. Ole Miss, 36%. And Tennessee right now would be 34%. So a few things right there. That's how the SEC would rank order these if one of these teams was, say, to be in that second position to go to the conference championship to play Texas or Texas A&M, something like that. Or if both of those other teams have 2 losses, then you'd have to redo the order. So that's how the rank order would happen. That's why we ranked them 7, 8, 9, and 10, even though number 10, Tennessee, beat Alabama and Georgia just had a terrible loss against Ole Miss. 2 things to keep in mind here before you start criticizing, because I know we're going to get some people in the chat doing that. 1, this doesn't take into account any non-conference games.
That's
right?
A big thing.
So Georgia beating Clemson doesn't matter in this scenario, and this isn't a perfect way to do it because there is no perfect way to do it, but it seems like the most logical right now until we get a finish to this season, or at least until we get next week. And then 2, this doesn't take into account where they played the football game. So there may be some people thinking, wait, Georgia has one of the toughest schedules in the country. All of their tough games came on the road at Alabama, Texas, and Ole Miss. The SEC, by design here on bullet point D, cumulative conference winning percentage of all conference opponents among the tied teams, doesn't take into account where you played the game.
Yes.
All right. But Georgia would still be second to Alabama right there.
And I want to let everybody know, it's like, wait, there's not a group of 5 team on there. Guys, we're giving you our top 12 teams. All right, we're not going by the format of, well, this team has to be in, this team has to be there. That's why in our rankings, yes, in the college football playoff rankings, Notre Dame couldn't get above 5, but in ours, they possibly could, because we're just trying to give you the top 12 teams the way we see it. And then when we get down to the end, we're going to tell you what we think the college football playoff, seating should be with their format. So I thought David explained it perfectly, because people are going to talk about the tiebreakers, the head-to-heads. That's where they're going to have the biggest problem with it. But when everybody is beating everybody evenly, right? Bama beat Georgia, but lost to Tennessee. Georgia lost to Bama, but beat Tennessee. Ole Miss is the only one who really hasn't played Bama or Tennessee, and they beat Georgia. I understand that, but when you look at strength of schedule, like David was saying, and where Alabama is, it makes sense. And the great part is, and the scary part is, I think this is going to work itself out somewhat, but there's a chance where it really doesn't. Like, there's a chance where the SEC still stays stagnant about it, where I think people could sit here and say, all right, well, I don't know if Penn State's better than Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, or Tennessee. I get that, but we want to follow a methodology. If you are undefeated, right, we are going to give you the benefit of the doubt at this point. There's a reason why Indiana's at 3, and yes, Indiana does play Ohio State on the road, so that's going to work itself out. But losses do matter, and the amount of losses you have do matter. Texas, while they haven't beaten anybody fantastic so far, Their loss is a very, very high quality loss. That's why they're in front of Penn State. That's why they're in front of Notre Dame. Why is Notre Dame in front of Penn State when they lost to Northern Illinois? Well, we also value quality wins. Notre Dame going on the road week 1 and beating A&M, who's in our top 12 now, is a quality win. Penn State has a quality loss with Ohio State, but there's no quality win. So the difference between us and the playoff committee outside of format is we have a baseline and we have rules and guidelines and we stick to them. And we move the teams based on the movement in those rules or guidelines, which at the end of the day, there is no perfect list. You can get upset and that's fine. Dissent moves us forward, as I always say, but you cannot question the methodology of how we got them there. And that's my biggest problem with the playoff committee. There is no set rules. There is no rubric. There is no guidelines. They're just throwing stuff at the wall.
There is one set thing, and I'll say it again. You want to make the college football playoff, win your conference. You can always do that. I love that at least 1/3 of this right now is objective. 2/3 of it still, yes, a bureaucratic committee, and you lay yourself at the mercy of them when you don't win your conference. But at the beginning of the season, every team has a chance to win their conference. This is what Blaine and I were talking about earlier in the day when we were all making this, is, you know, right now we said Penn State would fare better against those 4 two-loss teams, or really 5 if you include A&M, but Penn State would fare better against them than, say, a Miami would, even though Penn State and Miami are in similar situations. Obviously, Penn State has a solid loss. They couldn't beat the Buckeyes, who's ranked number 2 right now. Miami's loss is much worse. That's why they're ranked behind them. The question really became, do we just go 5 in a row and put Texas A&M up at 11 or leave them at 12? It's kind of moot because they're going to play Texas, last game of the season. And guys, a scenario exists here where Texas and Texas A&M could play again, I believe, in the SEC championship game based on these tiebreaker rules.
And, you know, if that were to happen, there's a possibility they could play a third time in the college football playoff if A&M were to win that SEC championship game, if they find themselves in it, and Texas has 2 losses.
For that to happen, though, Texas has to beat Texas A&M.
Yes.
And then Texas A&M has to get lucky with the tiebreaker.
Somebody has to fall.
Because if Texas has 2 conference losses, like we said, and it triggers the tiebreak numbers that I just brought up, Texas would finish last in the in-conference strength of schedule.
Yeah, and it's in conference. I thought that was a great point you made when it's not out of conference. On the national picture, it is all out of conference, in conference. But for the SEC and the Big Ten, these other conferences, it is what you did in conference when it comes to strength of schedule. Let's get to the chat.
Let's go to the crib. What's up, man? He says, why is a 1-loss team at 11? If Miami loses in Northern Illinois, they would be exiled from the top 25.
Well, no, that's not the truth, because if Miami would have beaten Texas A&M and lost to Northern Illinois, we would have them where Notre Dame is. The difference between Notre Dame and Miami is, yes, Notre Dame has a very bad loss, but Miami has a bad loss. Georgia Tech was 5-4 going into that game. All right, so one loss is worse than the other. I'll give you that. But Notre Dame has a big win. Who has Miami beaten that is even close to the realm of Texas A&M? They haven't played SMU.
Or Clemson.
Yeah. So, again, there's a method to it. You can think that that's fine, but I can explain to you why we have it there. It has nothing to do with the logo on your school or whatever. I mean, Miami and Notre Dame, that's a hell of a rivalry anyway. But the level of loss is worse for Notre Dame, but the level of win is so much better because Miami has a bad loss. Now, if Miami would have a good loss, and that'd be their only one loss, they would be ahead of Notre Dame.
And the Florida win looks better, obviously, after
it does.
And the Florida win could look even better if they were to upset Ole Miss this weekend. But don't get too concerned about that. Miami still pretty much controls their own destiny. Yep. If they are positioned to make the ACC championship game, and if they win there, not only do they make it, they'll probably get a bye.
Without a doubt.
All right, let's go to Neil. What's up, man? He says they literally left out 4 top 12 teams to prop up SEC 2-loss teams. I just don't understand it.
So like BYU, I guess, or SMU?
So BYU dropped to what, 14?
14 in the AP.
In the AP.
Which I think is right.
Technically, I think that's right, too.
I think the AP got that right.
I think that's right, too. And again, SMU, their best win, at least in my opinion. And listen, Arizona State being good is a great thing for BYU. If you're a BYU fan, you want Arizona State to be good to make that quality win better. But by propping up, again, like I'm confused by what you're confused about. What we're saying, propping up SEC teams. Are you sitting here and you're telling me you think BYU is better than Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee? You think SMU is better than Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee? You think Boise State is better than Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee? You think Colorado is better than Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee? Maybe I can give you one of them. Maybe I could say one, and Colorado's, hotter than a fat kid in a first sleeping bag at summer camp right now. But I don't think this is an SEC bias thing. Dog, we have the Big Ten in the top 3 spots.
This is why I sort of feel, what's the phrase, politically homeless on this issue, because we're getting it from both sides here.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to put Alabama and Georgia and Ole Miss and Tennessee at number 1, 2, 3, and 4, even though I think all of those teams could win the national championship. I'm also not going to put a lot of these other teams above them and knock them out of the top 12 just because they only have 1 loss or no losses. Like, at some point, if we're going to do a subjective thing for college football postseason, then we have to apply eye test somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, David, if you want to make everybody happy, just go sell ice cream.
Well, I am thinking about doing that. It's called Cones.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Cones.
Hey, trademark by Crain.
Yeah, Cones is a winner.
I do want to make people happy on my side job.
Let's go to Tommy Moore. What's up, Tom? He says Notre Dame hasn't played a true road game against a team who's beaten an FBS opponent since August 31st.
Still, they did right before that. Like, we can't, we can't just cut off the calendar. We can't be like, well, since September 9th, there's been 2 waxing moons and 9 full moons. That's not how it works. You got to look at the whole full season. We can't discount that win because it's in week 1. So I get what you're saying. I mean, it's not that I'm not the biggest Notre Dame guy. I think they're going to lose to Army, personally. And I've been saying that for weeks. But it's not about whether I like your team or not. It's what you have done and where we want to put you. But speaking about where we want to put you, if you're starting a new business, or maybe you've been running a business and you want to take some off your plate and you need somebody to trust, well, that's where Shopify comes in. Now, our marketing team uses Shopify every day to sell our merch, and we love how easy it is to add more items, ship products, and track conversions. So, Eric, if you do want to start that show, like I was telling you about, that podcast, and you want to sell merch, like shirts that say, I'm incredibly wrong, or maybe a mug that says, the transitive property for dummies. That's on you, but if you want to do that, you definitely need to use Shopify. And here's a not-so-secret secret. With Shop Pay, they're going to boost your conversions up to 50%. That means way fewer abandoned carts and way more sales going. You have so much to worry about when you're trying to run one of these things. Get a great offensive coordinator, and that's what Shopify is. They don't want to be the head coach. They just want to help you be the best head coach you possibly could be. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level, upgrade it right now. Get the same checkout we use here with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/CRAIN, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/CRAIN to upgrade your selling today. And when you hear this noise,
cha-ching,
cha-ching, yeah, that means we're getting rich, y'all. Shopify.com/Crain. And Eric, we still love you and appreciate you. All right. Going to get back to the chat. The phone lines are going to open here in 9 minutes, 1-855-236-3228. Remember, if you donate it and it's on topic, it will get read. If not, it'll get read at the end. And make sure to hit that subscribe button. We may not agree, but we can all get along. And even if we don't, hit the subscribe button anyway, because it's fun and it helps out everybody. David, there's a couple big games this weekend. Let's start with Ohio State and Indiana.
All right, boys, let's start with a game that's going to impact the rankings that we just put out. That's the Buckeyes hosting Indiana. Obviously, Buckeyes 9-1, only loss at Oregon by 1 point, and Kirk Cignetti has Indiana Hoosiers 10-0 right now. A couple things. Indiana is coming off of a bye.
Yep.
Okay. Last time we saw them, they were beating Michigan. The Buckeyes are coming off of a semi-bye because they played at Northwestern and handled business there. Right now, the line is -12.5 Buckeyes. Are you surprised by the line? 51.5 is the over-under. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Man, to be honest with you, I'm not surprised by anything anymore. I'm not surprised by anything. And I don't doubt Vegas. There are a lot of people like, how is Kansas only a 2.5-point underdog on the road at BYU? Well, they won by 4.
Just not surprised by anything.
I'm not surprised by anything nowadays.
I will scare you at some point in the show today.
Well, I'm not talking about you sneaking up from behind the TV or when I'm at the microwave at the house. But nothing in college football surprised me. No spread really surprises me anymore. There's some I want to take advantage of and some I don't. But as far as this game, and we deep dive, I think, a little bit different than everybody else here. I want to throw a couple things at you guys, a couple numbers. Both of these quarterbacks have an over 50% completion percentage when they're throwing the ball 20 yards down the field or more.
Wow.
That is really, really good. I think Indiana's 51%. I think Ohio State is 50%. When it comes to balance, Indiana is about as close to balanced offensively as you can possibly get. You'll never truly be 50-50, but they are amazingly close. I've said since the beginning, when Indiana started to get hot, I don't think Indiana's elite at anything. They're just really good at everything. When you watch the way they operate, they're not electric, they're not flashy, it's not sexy, but they stay on schedule. They live in 2nd and 4, they live in 3rd and 1, and one of the reasons they're able to complete these passes downfield, not just that Surratt and Cooper are really good players that can go get the ball, it's that they're in advantageous downs, and they're able to dictate to the defense when they want to take the shots, which means you're taking opportune shots against coverages that you like. another big question I have in this game when I look at Indiana going into it is they average giving up, I think, 5.9 yards per catch, which is actually pretty good, which means they're tackling in space pretty well. But I don't know if they have seen a team like Ohio State with these type of guys on the outside. And they also have a corner that is a great player that transferred from JMU. Potts, I think is his last name. He's 5'9". He's their boundary corner. He's going to be going up against 6'3" Jeremiah Smith. That is a matchup I would really like if I'm Ohio State. But I know what Chip Kelly's going to do, guys, and it's what he should do. He's going to see if he can run the ball early. He's going to test Indiana's mettle up front. Now, Ohio State's offensive line hasn't really been great, in my opinion. We can go back all the way to the Akron game at the beginning of the year. We've had questions about that. And Indiana's front seven has been pretty good stopping the run. But I wonder if Will Howard's legs, mixed with Ohio State's ability on the offensive line, even though it hasn't been great, we know they're talented, if Indiana's going to have to eventually start funneling resources to stop the run. And the minute they do that and they're skinny in the back end, they are going to give up big plays. And if you look at the way Indiana hits big plays, they don't get a ton of separation at wide receiver down the field. And I know I'm bouncing back and forth, but these things marry each other. They really go up and win a lot of jump balls. That's what they do. So going against Burke, going against whoever, downs in the safety position, Ohio State has guys that I think can cover them. What I worry about is Indiana can't stay on schedule this game, and they can't hit big plays in this game. And even if that Indiana defense in that front seven is slowing down the run, Chip Kelly is going to supplement the run with the quick passing game that Ohio State's really good at, whether they're bubbles, whether they're nows, whether they're slants, and whether they're hitches. And I just think Ohio State may have too many answers for what Indiana does defensively. And Indiana, because Rourke's not great at creating outside of the pocket, he's more of an in-the-pocket, extended from in-the-pocket type guy. I don't think Indiana has enough answers to questions if things aren't perfectly on schedule offensively. So Indiana deserves all the credit for where they've gotten. I just look at the matchups in this game, and they heavily favor Ohio State to me.
How do you have it right now?
There's a reason this game's 12.5, but a couple things I'll look at first. Let's look at Indiana. What keeps you on the beam, and that's balance. From an offensive standpoint, they are a very balanced football team. They can throw it. They can run it. They're averaging 44 points a game, which is really good. And you flip it to the other side, they're one of the best defenses in the Big Ten. You're only giving up 13.8 points a game, which is insane, to Ohio State's 10.3, which is even crazier. But right now, it's another thing that you can kind of lean on. It's momentum. Right? Momentum matters in this game, and I don't know a team that has more momentum right now than Indiana. And it's one of those things when you get there and you haven't been there before, and Indiana hasn't. Not in this type of picture, not in this type of place, to where you don't even know that you're there, so you play loose, you play fun. If Indiana's going to win this football game, first thing, crowd has to matter. All right? Crowd has to matter. Crowd has to make a difference. You got to win up front. The weakest part of, in my opinion, in Ohio State is the offensive line. And can you get to the quarterback? It's not about just pressuring him, but it's about getting him on the ground. If I'm Indiana, I want it on Will's shoulders for 4 quarters to see that he can actually go prove it and go win a football game. You go to the other side in Ohio State, you just have athletes running around all over the field. You have 2 at running back. You have 3 basically at receiver, but your offensive line hasn't been great. How important is Will Howard's feet in this game in third down in big moments? And you flip it kind of other side to momentum. Indiana hasn't been here before. Mm-hmm. They don't know how to play in this type of game. So if there's anything, Ohio State, you want to turn the ball over, and you need something to go right early. If something goes right early, you get up early, it takes everything out of the crowd, then it's a completely different football game. So this will be an interesting football game, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down like every other big matchup you see. Who can win up front?
Well, this one will be at the Horseshoe, which is already a very difficult place to play. Now, Kirk Cignetti, in my opinion, is playing with house money by Indiana football standards. Most people think of Indiana as a basketball school, don't think of a lot of success when it comes to Indiana football, and that's why they've already 10 games in signed him to an extension. But I don't think Kirk Cignetti's playing with house money based off his own standards.
No.
I think he's ready to come in here and win this conference in year 1, and you can't lose this game and still win the conference. As unfathomable as it seems to go 11-1, you're going to be on the outside of Indianapolis looking in, because I don't think the Buckeyes lose to Michigan next week to trigger any sort of tie break between you and a 1-loss Penn State. Now, Will a one loss to this team this weekend mean that you're shut out of the college football playoff? Likely not at 11-1, but I really think it matters how Indiana plays in this game, man. To me, you can't go in and lose by 30 points to the Buckeyes, even though they are the number 2 team in the country, and just hope that you get the benefit of the doubt over a bureaucratic committee who we've seen will put a one-loss Alabama in over an undefeated Florida State team in. Don't leave it up to them to put you ahead of some of these SEC teams that we just saw right there with the logjam with 2 losses. If you win this game, you'll play in the conference championship against Oregon, and that will give you a chance to get an automatic qualifier, which I think is Indiana's best chance to move forward and really solidify a college football playoff berth in year 1 of Kirk Cignetti.
Yeah, and to that point, if you are a fan of one of these 2-loss SEC teams, or if you are a fan of a bubble team, we can use that term now for college football, you want either 2 outcomes to happen. Either Indiana just wins outright, or they get blown out. You do not want Indiana to lose this game by 7. You do not want Indiana to lose this game by 10 and it look like a fight, because then Indiana's definitely going to get in, because they're going to murder Purdue next week. They get them at home. They're going to finish 11-1. So there's two different outcomes you want. Either Indiana just wins outright, okay, which gives Ohio State that second loss, or that Indiana just gets blown out, like 52-14, and they look like they don't belong. But you brought up the crowd, Blaine, and it's a great point.
And this game's at Ohio State.
This game is at Ohio State, right? So here's Indiana's road games this year. At UCLA, crickets. At Northwestern, crickets. Just hope they don't turn the lights off and put masks on. At Michigan State, down year Michigan State, new coach. Not that it's not loud, but it's not going to be this level of loud. And guys, that's it. All the other games have been at home. So this team, and I wonder if the confidence that Kirk Cignetti exudes, because there's an old saying, when I recruit you, I take on your personality. When you come here, you take on our personality. And that's a real thing. Can that swag have his team go in there and not let the crowd affect him? But it's not just going in there saying, I'm not going to let the crowd affect me. It's the silent count. It's dealing with stuff you haven't had to deal with against you on the road. Maybe some games at home with Indiana, where now they're filling it up and people are excited, but the offense is on the sideline when that's happening. You're not having a silent count. So I don't think Indiana can live in a world where they get 2 delay of games, where they get 3 false starts, or they get down to the goal line and it's 4th and goal from the 1 and they want to go for it, but oh no, the left tackle jumped, and now it's 4th and 6 and I got to kick a field goal. So how much will the crowd have an effect on this game? Probably a big one, but Cignetti's really good at winning things in the margin and getting his team prepared. So I'm interested.
So let me ask you this then. Bring up our current top 12 one more time, please, on the graphic. Let me ask you this. What if Indiana, who we have ranked number 3 right now, and they're going to play number 2, what if they lose by 17? They will have lost to the Buckeyes worse than Penn State did at home, though Penn State got them at home. What happens if they lose by 17-20, something like that?
I think it depends on how it looks. Like, is it where Ohio State got up and just ran the ball and ran the clock and you could tell they were better? Or is it something where, hey man, Indiana's been down by 10 the whole game, they're driving at the end of the game and they throw a pick 6? And it's a 17-point win. Or it's been a tighter game. Ohio State scores to go up 13 in the 4th quarter. Now Indiana's got to start throwing it and kind of miss that balance that we've been talking about earlier, and they throw a pick 6. I just wonder if it is 17-20, David, how does that loss compare to a Texas loss at home by 15 against Georgia?
They would be in the Texas camp then.
They would be in the Texas camp to me.
They would be in the Texas camp. Obviously, if you go and you lose by a couple points, I think that's a good showing. I think that's going to stick in the minds of people, even though a loss is a loss. Yeah. That's going to stick in the minds of a committee who's voting. Because I'm just thinking about your 2 scenarios here where you said, they could win outright. Let's say they win outright and you give the Buckeyes 2 losses. That creates even a bigger logjam of 10-2 teams who likely won't play in their conference championship game, but who have, passed the eye test for much of the season and who have big brands. You'd be putting the Buckeyes right there with Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, because all those teams can't make their conference
championship. And it's true, but I think that would behoove some of those 10-2 SEC. Not that that's the best case scenario. Like, the best case scenario for the 10-2 teams is that Indiana just gets blown out. That's what you want to have happen, and therefore Indiana missed the college football playoff. But I do wonder if that's when we get into the strength of schedule, A, and then what are your big wins? Because the 2 big games you played at, one at home, if they were to lose, like one at home, one on the road, you lost both of them. Well, Alabama's got that win over Georgia, right? Tennessee's got that win over Bama. Ole Miss got that win over Georgia, right? Texas, I think, would be you want to talk about an interesting conversation at the end? What if Ohio State does lose this game, goes 10-2, doesn't play in the Big Ten championship, then Texas goes and loses to Texas A&M, they're 10-2, don't play in the SEC championship. Neither one of them have a great win. It's not like you can logo watch there or pick one bigger brand over the other.
I wonder if the common opponent against Michigan would play at all there.
I don't think that's a bad thought at all.
And Buckeyes might do the same next week.
Definitely
not, but we'll see.
All right, let's get to the chat. Let's get one, and then let's move on.
All right, let's go to a $3 donation from Buckeye Ben. What's up, man? He says, if Ohio State loses this game, where would we fall in the rankings?
That's again,
a great question.
But here's the thing. Like, in our rankings, you would fall a decent amount. But the College Football Playoff Committee has basically looked us in the eyes and told us they want the biggest brands in there. They want the biggest teams in there. So, as far as their rankings, Texas not moving down just because they don't have a great win and sitting where Texas is sitting in the college football rankings would make you feel a lot better as an Ohio State fan if you lost, because you're seeing the way the committee is thinking. They're thinking brand and business over resume and result. So that will always favor the big dogs. Just like it always favors the politicians' kids. They always get in every school they want. They always get out of speeding tickets. That's just how it is, unfortunately. That's the way the committee's playing it. So in our rankings, you would fall decently and possibly out. But in the playoff committee's rankings, David, I don't think they would keep out Ohio State.
I still think they'd be right there on the cusp of that top 12. I think those 4 Big Ten teams are getting in, no matter how it shakes out, unless the Buckeyes were to lose the next 2 in a row.
Yeah.
Unless they were to lose the next 2 in a row, or unless they're to pick up a loss, but somehow you still play in the Big Ten championship game and pick up a third loss. Obviously, the third
or Indiana
loss.
Were to lose Ohio State and then Purdue or something like that.
Yeah, like that could be weird. I think those 4 are already locked in, man.
All right.
Do.
Well, before we get to calls, David, let's really quickly, you want to talk Texas A&M Auburn?
Yeah, let's do it real quick.
Let's, and then we're going to get to the phone line, so y'all hang on for 1 second. I tell you, I know there's a lot of A&M fans that are nervous as hell for this one. Mm-hmm. And I get why. Because Auburn just does weird things, even in bad years. And Texas A&M, you lose another one, you're out of the running pretty much. You've got to somehow get in the SEC championship game and win it, because that would be your third loss. And I know there's voodoo that happens at Jordan-Hare and all the witchcraft and wizardry. And I know Peyton Thorne, shoved the short fat kid in the locker this weekend against ULM and looked great. But I'm going to tell you, I don't think you should be that worried. Not because the game won't be tight. Auburn will keep it close. They may even be leading it. But I think A&M has got more alpha dog in them when it comes down to winning, because I don't trust Peyton Thorne. You've seen what has happened in the big games. Go look at Oklahoma. Played great for 3/4 of the game. Then the last half on the back end threw it right to him. And he's not the only problem that Auburn has. I'm not saying that. But when you're the quarterback, you're going to take the lion's share of the credit and the lion's share of the blame. And as crazy as this sounds, I trust a freshman in Marcel Reed on the road in Jordan-Hare over an older guy in Peyton Thorne in Auburn. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't lose, because Auburn could sneak around and find a way to win it. We all know that. And I know Texas A&M fans are nervous as hell, like I said. But when I look at the matchups, Auburn's defense is playing really, really well, right? But I think Marcel Reed can open some things up. And even if Auburn starts off well on offense early, guys, I just got no reason to trust Peyton Thorne in a game where he's playing against adults. I just don't.
Look, I was surprised, Blaine, to see the line at -2.5. I think Texas A&M is more than a field goal better than Auburn, but clearly the line is indicative of Texas A&M going with a freshman quarterback on the road, and that South Carolina game, I think, is sticking in Vegas's mind. Mm-hmm. You go and lose by 44-20 on the road at South Carolina.
Yeah, I'll tell you this right now. I mean, no matter what Auburn puts on the field, that stadium's going to be hell.
Yeah.
That stadium is going to be.
That's the most consistent thing Auburn's got.
Swag surfing started, and buddy, that thing, it's different on night in Jordan-Hare. I promise you that. Look, at the day, look at this Auburn team. I'm just going to do whatever I can to keep it out of Peyton Thorne's hands. I am. I'm going to play a game of how many times can I give it to Jarquez Hunter, and that's going to be another thing. You have to be able to win up front. And Texas A&M is walking in with a front seven that will maul you. And we go back to it. Peyton Thorne's going to have to make a couple plays in this game. He is. And I think the crowd's going to be huge. You give the Jarquez. Cam Coleman had 13 touchdowns last week against whoever. He's going to have to get the best players the ball in the biggest moments. You flip to the other side, A&M, you just can't beat yourselves.
Yeah.
Okay? You're walking in with a young quarterback into a hostile environment. Turnovers will kill you in this game. Okay? They really will. If you're A&M, you need to start. Something needs to go well early, because if you can take the crowd out of it early, now it'll be a little bit of smooth sailing in the back end. You just got to get to Peyton Thorne, too. You get to Peyton Thorne, you put it on his shoulders, he will fall apart like he's done the entire year. But, there's a reason the line is like this, okay? It's a scary game, and Auburn wins this game, they become what?
1 win away from bowl eligible.
Yeah, they're closer walking to being bowl eligible. So
Which, 6
have to win the next 2.
I'd rather say.
Yeah, I know.
You guys like the under at 47.5?
I do, because here's why. If you're Mike Elko going into this game, there's 2 things I'm looking at. One is, like Blaine mentioned, you got to start Jarquez Hunter. Now, the question becomes, does A&M have to do different things outside of base stuff and keeping their normal numbers to stop Jarquez Hunter? I think they're going to try that early. They're going to go out there. They're going to run their normal front. They're not going to do a lot of stunning, a lot of twisting. They're going to see if they can just line up and straight beat Auburn, kind of like Ohio State's going to try and do to Indiana running the ball. It's going to be the reverse of that. Texas A&M is going to try and get away with keeping an even box and stopping the run. If that doesn't work, then they'll funnel resources and they'll start to heat Peyton Thorne up. But there's one element of this game that A&M has a huge advantage in, and it's special teams. Auburn's special teams are awful. They're awful in every sense of the word. Absolute garbage, flaming hot garbage. They've got to get rid of that guy at the end of the year. I don't care if he's a GA, an SA, a TA, or a Pi Theta Mu, whatever. He needs to be fired. You need to get a real special teams coach in there.
I heard they're looking for anybody with special teams experience.
I'm busy. Anyways, so if I'm A&M, I'm not worried. Auburn's not going to return anything in the return game. They're not going to hurt you there. They're going to fair catch kicks because they're not good enough. They hold more than a Swiss bank account whenever they get in returns. But when you're returning against Auburn, I think you can have some success, especially on punt return. So if I'm Mike Elko, when I look at how bad Auburn's field goal kicking is, how solid you have been in those units, I think not only, and it's not just about returning it for touchdowns, it's field position. I think A&M, one way to kind of cheat the code is to get great field position early in this game to take some of that pressure off Marcel Reed, where maybe if even you don't score a touchdown, you get a field goal and you're getting points and you're putting pressure on Peyton Thorne and that Auburn offense to have to continue to score against an A&M defense is pretty good.
How much do you run Peyton in this game?
As much as I have to.
Yeah.
As much as I have to. Like, what do you got? Oh, boy,
Georgia
playing
game
in the league.
last year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If there's ever a comp, it has to be the Georgia game last year. And that game was somewhat low scoring.
Well, you look at Auburn's defense. The defense is going to have to win this game for Auburn. They're going to have to win it. I'm telling you right now.
Texas A&M just can't lose it.
They just can't lose it. Texas
and it's going to be
Which you can with a freshman quarterback.
That's what I'm saying.
Road,
it's going to be a lot easier to lose it walking with a young quarterback who's trying to do too much and walking in Jordan Hare in a night game, man. It's just tough.
Well, we do know there's going to be a lot of beverages consumed in Auburn, Alabama, and Lee County, Alabama. And not just by the Auburn fans, by the A&M fans as well. But if you're going to drink, all right, let me give you talk about cheating the code. If you don't want to feel as bad the next morning, you need to check out Z-Biotics. Basically what Z-Biotics is, it's a probiotic that you drink before you go out and drink alcohol, and then that next morning is not as rough. You know exactly what I'm saying. And please, drink responsibly, all right? Because it attacks the byproduct that alcohol gives your body. It's not dehydration that makes you feel bad. It's a byproduct. And Z-Biotics is the first PhD-engineered pre-alcohol probiotic drink to be able to attack that. And I promise you, I swear to you, it works. We are all walking examples of why Z-Biotics works. We want to hear about your experience. We have a lot of people on social media that post, hey, I drank my Z-Biotics, did not feel as bad after I went out and had a good time, whether it's that brown water, whether it's beer, whatever, I'm telling you, it works. So go to zbiotics.com/booster to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use code BOOSTER, BOOSTER at checkout. It's backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. If you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. If you got a child or you got a son or daughter in college that's old enough to drink, this is a great stocking stuffer. All right, adult Christmas. Head to zbiotics.com/booster. Use code BOOSTER at checkout for 15% off. Z-Biotics, drink up, then get down. All right, let's get to the phone lines.
All right, first caller is Devin in Tempe, Arizona. Devin, you're the first caller of the week. Let's set the tone.
Gentlemen, I donated $5 and told you I'd call in. I am here. And hey, Blaine, my last name is Tebow, like Tim Tebow.
That's exactly how I said it. That's what I told them after.
I can't see the spelling.
I don't know what these guys.
If you would have told me you were in Tempe, I wouldn't have gone with the Cajun Thibodeau. You know, I thought it was the end, but that's fine. It's a great time to be in Tempe, though. So, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Let you down here. My quick question for you guys is, how big is Sam Levitt's legs going to be in this Arizona State game? Because if you watch the BYU game against Kansas, even though, you know, Jalen Daniels obviously a better runner than Sam Levitt, his mobility in the pocket and able to get out of the pocket was unbelievable. And Levitt's got a little bit of witch in him. So I just didn't know if that's going to be a bigger than just a power forehead running game.
Yeah, well, Devin, to me, I think Sam Leavitt is sneaky fast. I remember watching y'all against Mississippi State, and I watched him take off one time. And I know Mississippi State's roster isn't typically where it is, but they still are an SEC defense. And Sam Leavitt was running away from people. And then the more I watch him, like, this guy actually gets faster the more he gets. The thing is that baseball player in him. It's amazing how much faster guys get when they round that bag at first base. But his legs are going to be huge, and not just in any, zone read or whatever, and not just in running for rushing yards. Devin, I would say I think where his legs are going to be the biggest in this game is extending the play inside and outside of the pocket. If you notice, one thing that hurt BYU was Jalen Daniels' not just ability to take off, but move the pocket, get out of the pocket, and keep his eyes downfield when it turns into a scramble drill. Because Arizona State offensively, and typically this is not the way Dillingham operates. Dillingham wants to be creative. They want to throw the ball around, right? They want to take advantage of every blade of grass. But he's smart enough to realize with Scattaboo and the guys you have, that's not who you need to be. So you guys hit some chunk plays because Sam Leavitt, that's where he gets creative, right outside of the pocket. So I don't think it's just about his legs when he's taking off and running. It's about extending the play and giving those receivers some time to move during the scramble drill when it all turns to man. That may be where you get some of the big plays.
Hey, Devin, how does it feel to know that Arizona State, whose projected preseason win total was 4.5, is sitting right here with an opportunity to play in the Big 12 championship?
I don't think we've been this excited down here since Taylor Kelly was our quarterback. Like, it has been that long, and we've been starving for a team. And I mean, when we get a team, man, this valley lights up, and it is not a fun place to play. And just a little note for you guys: they finally put back the "Abandon Hope, All Ye Enter" sign inside Memorial Stadium. So
it's getting real. Well, it's
and stadium.
And Devin, I want to say this before we let you go. We hear a lot about Kurt Cignetti and what he's done, and we should. We hear a lot about Coach Prime and what he's done, and we should. You don't hear a lot about what Kenny Dillingham has done at Arizona State. And if you don't pay attention to the from coast to coast in college football, I don't think you realize, you do, Devin, but I don't think people realize how bad not only the on-the-field play from Arizona State has been, but the stuff happening off the field with Herm Edwards and Antonio Brown. This is one of the best rebuilds, one of the fastest rebuilds that I have ever seen. And it's not like he just went to the transfer portal and brought in all these guys with him. Like, it's been a very organic build. And David, to your point, not only is Arizona State with a 4.5 win margin by Vegas sitting there with a chance to win the Big 12 championship, we're using the word college football playoff potential because if they win that Big 12 championship, and oh, by the way, they get to host the team that's been leading the conference this whole time, then they would be in the college football playoff, which would be absolutely incredible and great for not only Arizona State and that program, but I think for the health of college football overall.
And I will say this, Scotty is one of the funnest players to watch.
Isn't he awesome?
His high school tape
is one of the funnest players to watch in college football.
His high school tape is insane.
Appreciate it, Devin.
Thanks for the call, buddy.
Thanks, man. All right, let's go to Timothy in Green Bay. Timothy, talk to us.
How you guys doing?
Tim, what's up?
What's up, man?
Haven't been out talking for about 2 months. First time I've listened to the full show because football's finally done.
Yeah, welcome.
It's done. How did it end up with you?
We struggled this year, 2-9. We had a couple games where we led the entire game and they scored with 10 seconds to go. So
wow, that's tough.
Got a lot of Auburn in you.
Yeah, look, it's like they say in what's that one movie, Bull Durham? It's like, man, hey, what's our record? 7-17. God, how did we win 7?
What's up, dude?
Dude, want to talk about that the terrorist is finally gone. Wisconsin finally fired Phil Longo, thankfully.
Yeah.
Boy, did that just not seem like a weird match?
Yeah.
Like, and not just because Wisconsin, and you can change offenses and things like that, not just because Wisconsin's typically been a, huge Siberian cave troll offensive line that's just downhill, Braylon Allen. I can go through the list of all the big backs, all the way back to Ron Dane. But, I thought it was a weird mix with Luke Fickell.
Thank you. Yes.
It was weird. And look, I've heard nothing but good things about Phil Longo as a person. I got to meet him one time, 6 or 7 years ago, and he was very cordial to me. But I know the injury to Van Dyke was early against Bama. But this was a move I think that needed to be made. My question, Timothy, is who do you think is going to get the nod? Is there a name out there that you guys are hearing that may be a front runner early in this thing? And why is it Brennan Marion from UNLV?
Hey, I wouldn't mind that. I'm not hearing too much, but I did see a couple Badger Twitter saying Phil has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever: bring back Paul Pierce.
Yeah. As head coach or OC?
OC.
Yeah.
Quick, should hire him as OC. Just the funniest thing ever.
That would be
Dan
funny.
Mullen to Arkansas, Bobby P to Wisconsin.
Bobby P to Wisconsin. I don't think he did.
I don't know. It's not good motorcycle
Believe
ride
him.
weather.
Yeah.
It depends on the season.
Yeah.
But the best part of the weekend, getting that number 9 win against Arizona in basketball.
Yeah, that was a big one for you guys. That was
Wisconsin always.
how about-
Even when Wisconsin's bad at basketball,
Yeah.
they always have 2 guys who are just.
you got two
NBA
like Polish white guys that
Yeah.
can just shoot it from the logo at any
Literally.
point in time.
And how about the Packers walk-off block field goal against the divisional rival Chicago Bears?
11 straight wins versus the Bears.
It's insane.
Yeah, people needed to go do a wellness check on Bears fans.
No, it's bad.
It's bad.
Y'all didn't even
bad.
make a run at Jim Harbaugh. Y'all didn't even.
You want to talk about a crazy football game?
Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
Great call,
Appreciate
dude.
it, man. All right, let's go to Noble in Fort Worth, Texas. Noble, what's up?
What's up, guys? Wonderful Monday to get riled up about college football.
Yes,
beautiful.
sir.
God,
it is.
the trust tree is just a buzz.
Paint me a
riled
pretty
up.
picture.
Yeah. Well, hey, they can't accuse you of SEC bias when 6 of your top 6 are predominantly Big Ten schools. So everyone on your back.
It won't stop them. It won't stop them.
Yeah.
Well, listen to me. Hey, so I actually made my own top 12 as well. It's pretty similar to yours. So I wanted to run it by you real quick.
Yeah.
And then compare notes. The difference of my criteria is I focus on, I think ranked wins are like the most important thing besides, being undefeated. If you're undefeated, you get the benefit of the doubt if you're in the Power 4.
Yeah.
But then ranked wins after that.
Okay.
I think
I'm down with that.
Top metric. So top 3 are the same: Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana. Then at 4, I have Georgia, 5 Texas, 6 Tennessee, 7 Alabama, 8 Notre Dame, 9 Ole Miss, 10 Penn State, 11 Miami, and 12 Boise State. I had BYU, Texas A&M, SMU, Colorado was the first 4.
Now, did you put Boise State 12 because there has to be a group of 5 team in there, or do you think Boise State is the 12th best team?
That's a fair question. I think they're better than BYU. There's an argument that I might put my A&M over Boise State.
Well, I just didn't know. I was looking at the format of what you did. Like, I didn't know if you said, I'm going to use the college football playoff format because this is what has to happen. A group of 5 has to be in there at some point.
I think Boise State, if they're not, I think they're right around 12. So it's not a perfect list, but it's like, I feel like.
Well, I mean, again, you have rules. So I can respect it.
Yeah. I think the biggest difference between my list and most everyone else's is that I docked Penn State for essentially having no ranked wins.
Yeah.
I don't really see what their resume is so impressive for that reason. Why Texas is at 5 because their best thing about the resume is a win over Vanderbilt and a loss to Georgia. That loss to Georgia looks really good because I give Georgia a lot of credit for playing probably the hardest schedule in college football. That's relevant. I mean, Florida's probably got the hardest schedule. But yeah, no, I think that's my list. And I wanted to see what you guys thought about that. What we scattered around. I know I Penn State over Miami, but by barely.
Well, let me ask you this really quick while we got you, Noble. And again, this is why we do it, and this is why we talk about it, and there is no perfect list. I'm having a little trouble squaring how you're going to look at where did you have Penn State?
10, wasn't it?
10?
Yeah, 10.
And you had Texas at 5. So,
yeah.
And you had Ohio State at what, 2? And Georgia at what?
4.
So technically, Penn State has a better loss than what Texas does by your rankings.
That's true. That's true.
So, and again, I'm just pointing out what I would think. So
the measurement. I think I tested like the 3rd metric in mine.
Okay.
So how much would you penalize? How much would you penalize Indiana if they lost to the Buckeyes this week? Given how much you've penalized Penn State for losing to them at home.
Last week I had BYU in the top 4. They're now 13.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we did. That's what we did.
That makes sense.
Which I think is right.
Like 14, they'd be out of the top 12.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to specify though that BYU losing to Kansas is a much worse loss, regardless of score, than Indiana losing to Ohio State.
Yep.
But Noble,
I think Indiana loses close. They're still out there.
Yeah, gotcha. No, but great call, man.
There's two ways to lose bad. Either you could lose to such an inferior opponent, or you could get blown out by good competition.
Yeah.
Right? Both of those are.
We should have just yelled at you. Hey, your playoff list.
Yeah, we should have just yelled at you. Yeah. Hey, let us know. Call back every Monday and tell us what your new top 12 is, because I like to see the movement of the other people as well.
That'd be great.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, let's go to. Thanks, man. Let's go to Mike in Colorado. Mike, what's up?
Hey, boys. So, yeah, thank you guys again. I called last week to get some tips on taking my son up to the game, and we couldn't make it over to Fox, the pregame, but he got in. He was able to get down close to the field before the game and get autographs.
Awesome.
And I just want to give a shout-out to, I think, maybe the least popular Sanders boy, Shiloh. He stopped and signed a hat for my son. He signed a football for us, and then he also stayed there while my son unfolded and got a picture that he drew of Shiloh out for him to autograph.
Man, that's great.
That's awesome. That's what it's really about. We don't hear enough of the good side of really the Sanders family at Colorado, because there is, again, I'm not saying you got to love them, and I'm not saying that they're perfect and that everything they've done, nobody's perfect, but I don't think we hear enough about the good side, about what they're doing and really what Prime and his family have done from a charity standpoint as well. Or that we don't, because that doesn't sell, right? Your son getting an autograph from Shiloh and him waiting and being patient, that's not going to sell clicks. It's going to be all the negative stuff. So we want to make sure and highlight the positive.
And if you watch that post game of their last game between Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, man, that was just that's real life, right?
Yeah.
That you can tell that's an act, that those guys love each other, they do anything for each other, and that carries to what? That carries on the field, man. So it's just great to see the good side of Colorado instead of everything getting painted in a bad way.
By the way, Travis odds to win the Heisman Trophy now at minus 350.
Yep.
Skyrocket.
Well, he needed Dylan to have the type game he had against Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, these guys, who wouldn't want to send their son to play in an environment like that?
Yeah.
So I think that's often overlooked. And so, yeah, that was a blast. I tend to agree with where you guys are at. The one thing I would say to address all this confusion around how these college football rankings need to play out is, if we're going to continue to do this, we need to get the SEC to play 9 or 10 conference games. Same with the Big 10, same with the Big 12. If you're going to have all of these teams in your conference and you want to really sort this out on who's the best, it can't come down to these weird tiebreakers of 2 lost teams.
Well,
Just play more conference games and then get some alignment between the conferences.
Mike, we've asked for the extra conference game, but here's the problem. If I'm Greg Sankey in the SEC and I'm watching the way the playoff committee is doing this, I now want to play less conference games.
Sure.
Like because they're not, because and I know I'm not questioning whether you get why they're doing it or not, but from a business standpoint, Greg Sankey's job is to put the SEC in the best position possible to get the most teams in the playoff. And if the playoff, that's why, again, it's sometimes I think we forget it truly is a business. Just like college, really deep down, it's not meant to educate your kids as well as possible. It's getting that tuition check, right, each semester. It is a money maker. I'm not saying college is bad. I'm not saying don't go to college, but don't forget at the end of the day, a business is about making money, and this is a billion-dollar industry that we're talking about.
Yeah, that goal of getting as many teams into the college football playoff as possible, that's going to infuriate a lot of fans if we get to a situation in the SEC where they're flipping a coin at a gas station to decide who goes to the SEC championship game. If some of these initial tiebreakers we've been talking about for months now don't work out, like that's going to be your main problem, is expanding the conference at the same time that you've eliminated divisions and we don't get a true conference champion.
That's why, like, getting rid of divisions and not adding that extra conference game just didn't make sense.
But if you're Greg Sankey, you're talking about business, why would you give it to ESPN?
Because I'm thinking at it from...
I know Tim Brando comes on and said, well, they're already paying you so much money, you should play 9 conference games. From a business decision, make ESPN pony up for the 9th one. I get it. I do understand.
Never forget, they told us cigarettes weren't bad for you for a long time.
Hey, that was a long time ago. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, man. All right, let's go to Carson in Alabama. Carson, what's up?
Hey, guys. I was supposed to call last week, but I got tied up. I was the one that...
God, how'd you get out?
Are you okay?
Who tied you up? Hopefully it was your wife.
I was trying to see if y'all knew anyone at Alabama Athletics or if y'all would be able to help me out yourselves. My wife signed up for a Christmas drive for hurricane victims in North Carolina, and it just so happens the girl that we were assigned is an Alabama fan. And so I was trying to get in touch with someone at the Alabama Athletics for, something cool, something special. I mean, hurricane victim, lucky draw, I'm an alumni, so I didn't know if y'all had any contacts or y'all know what I should do. I've emailed the athletics facility for a little autograph thing. No reply yet.
Yeah, we got to do something.
Yeah.
Well,
Carson, do you follow us on social media at all?
Yeah, I sent y'all a tweet. I think you actually liked the tweet. It was from like last Wednesday, I think.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Let me go back and look and see if we can make something shake on that front.
And let's see if Darby Lou's in the chat, too.
Yeah. That'd be a great.
we can absolutely do something.
Hold on. By the way, I don't mean to change the subject. Me and my wife, we had Reed's mom's memorial this weekend. And so we drive Saturday morning. I'm like, we got to leave early. I got to watch all these games. Where can we watch the games? By the hotel. We stop by a Baumhauer's that's right by the hotel. We walk in and we sit down at the booth. All the games are on. I'm ready to go. And I look up and young Richard Todd's face.
There you go.
Is staring at me. I
RT,
think
baby.
Reed took a picture of it and sent it to Darby Lou. And I couldn't stop looking at him.
They're best friends.
Oh, dude. It was. And like,
so much so that when they played each other in the playoffs, when the Jets lost to the Dolphins and they went out to dinner afterwards, all the Jets fans thought Richard threw the game on purpose.
Because they
He's like, you're eating with the Dolphins players after, like, best friends. For
I love it. But no, hey, we'll try and
Appreciate it, Carson.
100%, dude.
Thanks, man. All right, let's go to Jackson in Utah. Jackson, what's up?
Hey, boys, what's up?
What's up,
Jack? Love the energy, baby. What's going on?
Hey, so I'm calling in from Utah. I've got a brother-in-law at Boise State, and I'm a longtime BYU fan, went to BYU. And so, you know what, just loving this year, man. Loving BYU being good. Bad time to call in after the loss, but tough game to be at. But, you know, good year for both Boise State, BYU. How are my chances to see both of them in the playoff? I'm looking bad after the week, but still have control of their destiny, I think.
You know what's funny? Like, I was wondering, if you're BYU, there's an avenue where what has changed? Because I think there was a decent chance that if BYU went undefeated during the regular season and lost in the conference championship game, they just dropped you all the way out of the top 12, right, in the AP after one loss. So were you going to have to win out and win the conference championship game anyway?
You had a better shot of losing to a conference champion
and getting
still sliding in than you did losing to this Kansas team.
You got to win it now.
Right, now that's what's changed. Now you have to win
right.
it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I feel like, you know, it puts them in a good spot. As a BYU fan, right, we're pumped up that I was thinking we were going to win 5 games is a miracle. Playing good, playing on fire, and I was waiting for the loss. I thought it was going to come to Utah. I figure we're going to lose one at least eventually. Maybe that puts a fire under them, and they can go and play a good Arizona State team, and maybe set himself up for a good kind of a turnaround from kind of been in a slump. It feels like the last few weeks.
Yeah, well, if I would have told you before the season that, hey, man, on November 18th, you're still going to control your own destiny to make the college football playoff, I think Kalani Sitake would have taken that in spades with what everybody else was thinking. So it is a great year as far as Boise. They're the leader in the clubhouse right now in the group of 5. But this Army Notre Dame, I just don't think there's a world in which Army beats Notre Dame, right? And where Notre Dame is ranked now in the rankings, goes undefeated, wins their conference, and isn't in the playoff, which means they're going to be the group of 5 rep. Because there's probably not going to be 2. Like, there's not going to be.
Wait, you said Boise?
I said Army. If Army beats Notre Dame,
Gotcha.
If Army beats Notre Dame and goes undefeated with that win, right, they've got to be in over Boise.
100%.
I'm sorry. Like,
that's where the College Football Playoff Committee put themselves in a tough situation by putting Boise up that high. Because if they went out, how do you, would you just go move them? I guess you would just move them back.
I guess
not that they have many standards over there.
Yeah.
I think Kirby Smart.
I kid the committee. I'm kidding them.
Yeah.
I'm kidding them. Appreciate it, Jackson.
Great call, man.
Thanks, man.
Well, it's hard because if Boise State, if Notre Dame loses to Army, Boise State could be out. But if Notre Dame loses, that might help BYU, who loses the conference championship game.
Oh, look, if Notre Dame loses, it helps everybody. Yeah, if Notre Dame loses, it helps everybody. Really, maybe outside of A&M, right? Because that loss looks a little less great than it did. But everybody on the planet is rooting against Notre Dame pretty much in the college football world.
Meanwhile, Tulane and Memphis have a
Tulane's just sneaking.
Tulane and Memphis have an interesting game. I just don't think it'll be enough.
Our boy Danny Cannell said he thinks Tulane should get in over Tennessee.
Is that what Danny Cannell said?
Crack.
Danny. Danny, stop.
Appreciate it, Jackson.
I love Danny, but stop.
All right, next up. Thanks, man. Next up, Tennyson in Texas. What's going on, man?
Hey, how are you guys today?
What's up,
Good, man?
So I had a quick question. So specifically from the perspective of A&M, how do you guys think the committee will evaluate a team that gets into their conference championship with 2 losses, like a lot of teams in the SEC could, and then loses that game? Are they going to be punished for making the conference championship game?
Well, like,
what we're doing here?
Yes. Here's the thing. I don't believe what they say. Like, they came out and said, I don't know if it was Word Manual or whoever, came out and said that they're going to look at the conference championship game as a reward and not really penalize that team. But here's the thing. I don't believe you, dog. Like, I don't believe you. It's like, why is all these people not watching CNN and MSNBC the whole time? Because you just lied to me for so long. Like, at some point, I just don't believe you. Like, you can say that, but I just, because that's why not be, and I got to give Drew Butler credit. He's the first one to say it. That's why we need the transparent, we need the meeting broadcasted. I don't care if it's, I got to zoom in, right? Or if I got to watch it on Roku or C-SPAN. I need to hear what every one of these guys on the committee is saying to see if it lines up with what they're putting out. Because I'll just be honest with you, whatever they say, I don't believe them. In fact, I'm more inclined to believe the opposite. If they tell me it's a Wednesday, I think it's a Sunday. If they tell me she's good looking, I think she's a 3. So that's just where I'm at with these guys now.
Look, I've said all season, I think the winner and the loser of the SEC championship and the Big Ten championship both get in. Now, that was at a time when I still thought the SEC might get 2 one-loss teams or an undefeated team in. Right now, it is looking, Tennyson, like you're talking about, like a 2-loss team, either 2 losses in the conference or Texas A&M with, 1 loss out of conference gets in the championship.
It has to be now, right?
They're gonna punish y'all, dog.
And if it's Texas A&M, here's what's interesting. If it's Texas A&M who gets in the conference championship game but has 2 losses and then loses that and picks up a 3rd, you're going to be sitting there with now South Carolina. Now the discussion really heats up. Because if South Carolina beat the ACC champion Clemson, let's just say that were to happen, and beats a team that played in the SEC championship game and lost, and they have 3 losses, that's where it's really going to be tough. Even though you have to, I don't think it's tougher to penalize teams that played an extra game in a championship.
You know the only time I think you should be penalized for it? You know the only time is if you lose to the same team twice. That's what I think.
Which Texas A&M, that could happen.
Oregon, Ohio State.
Yeah.
And the argument will be from A&M fans, yes, we picked up a 3rd loss, but that's because we couldn't sit that game out, right? So you're incentivizing teams in the future to just say, okay, so there's no incentive to play the conference championship game.
Look, I agree with you.
Which I think it helps Notre Dame, because in years prior, Notre Dame pretty much had to go undefeated, right? Or 1 loss, because they didn't have a conference.
Yeah, well, and David, think about this, and Tennyson, think about this. On the other side, on the flip side of that, what if, and again, I got to see, mathematically, if this could happen. I don't know if it could or not. Well, it probably could. We got 2 games left. What if A&M were to beat Texas in the regular season and then have to play them again in the SEC championship and lose that game to get that 3rd loss? Well, now you beat the team that just beat you. You split with them 1-1. So how can you penalize us and not the other team? You see what I'm saying? Like, there's just...
Look, the more we talk about it, bring back the BCS.
That's what Blaine just wants to...
Then what would you sit here and talk about?
Yeah. Here's what I'm talking about how great...
Here's what the computer did.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Ohio State.
I'm talking about how great the playoff would be.
There's too many computers. Fewer computers in line.
Yeah, we need write-in-hand paper ballots.
All right, anybody else on the line, please call in tomorrow and say Pongo. We'll get to you.
All right, let's get to bets. Here we go. Tonight, Dendonos. Oh, I don't think the Cowboys are good at anything. Give me the Texans minus 6.5.
Joey
minus 129. And then Joe, I'd be mixing 2+ touchdowns at plus 275. I think he's going to score the first one and the last one.
Wow. Okay.
Really? I love that because he's on my fantasy team trying to hold on for a win this week. Ooh. And I also want to be bet buds with you on the minus 6.5. You bought that down from 7.5, didn't you?
Because I'm a
same thing.
Boy.
Minus 129. And then give me the over. I know it's a little bit risky. I don't know how many points the Cowboys are going to score, but give me over 41 in the game, minus 112.
All right, I love it. Pull up my bets. I'm going to go ahead and get Dallas plus 7.5.
You're a psychopath
as well. You know how the NFL is. And Jack, I'm going to roll with it too, man. Just not 2, but 1. I'm going to go Joe Mixon anytime touchdown.
And Nico Collins is back, right?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. All right, I have Tank Dell, and I need 20 points.
You're down 20?
Yeah. Because this dude sniped. What's the tight end from the Chargers? Disley?
Oh, Will Disley?
Who had like 22. He's caught 4 passes.
All right, you've scored a lot of points.
I'm in the playoffs. It's fine. I'm in the
playoffs. Oh, you're in the playoffs already?
Yeah,
so does he have any fantasy players playing against you tonight, or do you just have Tank
No,
Dell?
I just have Tank Dell. I'm down
20?
24.
Tank's gonna score 21. You're down 24?
4.
He needs 25?
I need a 25 piece, Coach.
Oh, yeah, you lost.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Ace.
Thanks. Appreciate it, dude.
Ace is going to go Houston-Dallas, shortest touchdown.
Where did you find this?
What a great bet for my son. There's going to be a 1-yard touchdown.
So shortest touchdown under 1.5 yards. This would be the greatest bet for the Eagles of all time.
Oh, for sure.
At minus 105.
Minus 1,000.
And then he's going to take the Texans TTP over 23.5 at minus 142.
All right, I love it, guys. If you donated today, thank you so much. We're going to start off with a $5 donation from Big Rick. What's up, Ricky? He says, boys, can we speak Army beating Notre Dame into existence?
I've been doing it for 2 weeks.
We want the college football playoff, baby.
Jake picked them a month ago.
Hey, that video, what was it, the uniform?
They're doing they're honoring the 101st Airborne.
Yeah.
They got like Bastogne on there. I'm just telling you, you want to inject something in my veins. The 2 things I love the most outside of my wife and family is football. It's not guys.
They couldn't hear that.
It's football and history, especially military history. You put those 2 things together, and I'm over here feeling good.
You get to Jake's house at any point past 10 o'clock, this bombs are blowing up in his living room because he's watching some World War II documentary.
We stay ready.
All right, let's go to a $5 donation, actually $10 donation from Glory88. Appreciate it. Says, this is me speaking. And Notre Dame lost to Army out of existence and outbeating that other guy. Go Irish. Notre Dame wins by 17. Go Irish, man. I love it.
That's funny.
The world can't handle Notre Dame winning the national championship in the same year they lost to Northern Illinois.
No, that's
going to be something to experience, man.
Let's go to $5 donation from Shane. Appreciate it, Shane. As a UGA fan, I didn't think we would be a time I'd be happy with the Florida win this weekend. If they do, it makes it a lot easier for them dogs. Hashtag go dogs.
Hey, can I go ahead and say something? Georgia fans. When it comes to the college football playoff, because who they got left? What, somebody then Georgia Tech?
It's all out of conference.
Mm-hmm. It's a cupcake, right?
Yeah.
And then Georgia, can we see this? Just before, I want you to tell me the teams before I say this.
Okay. Hold on.
All right. This is very important, and I don't make these statements. I'm calling Pennsylvania right now.
It is Massachusetts and Georgia Tech.
Good team this year.
Georgia, congratulations. You are in the college football playoff. Shoe in. Georgia's in at 10-2. They're not going to turn down a 10-2 team, especially that's Georgia, that beat Texas and Tennessee. Georgia, congrats. You're going to Hollywood.
No shot they lose to Georgia Tech then.
Look, man, UMass got a good squad.
Keep in mind, this game's in Athens. Okay.
As the one who picked Georgia Tech over Miami,
I'm so ready to go see our predictions before the season and what they look like.
I just want to see the ACC ones.
Cody Nason's probably working on that as we speak.
Gotta love Cody. All right, let's go to a $2 donation from Tim. Thank you, Tim. Says, when Big Ten wins a natty, I will drink SEC tears.
Hey, we're still the reigning champs in the Big Ten right now.
Yeah. Yeah, act like you've
got it for a couple more months.
Let's go to a $5 donation from Cuse. He says, what happens to Ohio State if they lose to Indiana, beat Michigan, and don't go to the Big Ten championship?
Talked about that
Does
earlier.
The committee still put the Buckeyes in?
They're gonna.
I think they're in.
They're gonna. You know they're gonna. I know they're gonna.
Let's go to a $5 donation from David. Appreciate it. Says, I love all you people crying and screeching like banshees on the show that no one is forcing you to watch.
Yeah, now, look, I mean, we all like dissent. We don't have to
No,
agree.
I like yelling, especially early in the week.
Yeah.
That's when the best time to get it out is.
I hate it out of body, Eric, like that. But
Listen,
just listen, if you're going to disagree with me, just give me a valid point. Don't just hurl insults.
You're an idiot.
Yeah.
You're stupid. That jacket's ugly.
Oh, good. Hey.
€6 from DB.
No way. International currency.
DB.
How many cents is that?
Don't worry about it.
It's DB from Yorkshire.
Yeah, that's $200 American.
Says, is it just me or is Signetti walking into this matchup with confidence that makes everyone ask, who's that cool dad in the Buick Cascada?
That's what I've literally been saying. Like, look, Kurt Signetti, he's that cool dad that we all knew that, you know, when you went over and you had the sleepover at his house, you know, at his kid's house, he let you drink soda, got to stay up past 10, and when he comes in, he may wear the white, you know, New Balance or Adidas. He may have the dad fit all right, that we all know. He may adjust his pants a lot, a la Gus Malzahn, but when he pulls up to pick you up at the middle school, he's got that new Drake mixtape and some Chick-fil-A waiting on you.
He's bumping Gotti. $5 donation from Welcome to Heaven. Thanks, man. Only one thing I would change on the top 12 is moving Ole Miss to 8 and Georgia to 9. Head-to-head has to matter.
Well, see, there
you go.
And again, I get like dog.
And you got to move it all over.
Yeah.
And like
Everyone point a gun at each other.
Yeah,
It's a spaghetti western.
Like you're right.
Mexican standoff.
You're right, but you're also wrong because you're right on 4 different fronts. So like then it changes everything.
That's where the question of, okay, well, for the second loss, is it better for it to be with one of the teams that's not tied, like Ole Miss is to Kentucky?
Even though it's a worse loss.
Or is it better to be Georgia? And wait, we lost to both of them.
It's got to be Georgia, right? It's got to be.
That's why I just said, look, that's why anytime you can inject objective metrics into the standings, you should do so. And that's the SEC's own standings right there.
Yeah.
$2 donation from David the Traffic Cone. He says, why is there a traffic cone on a sports show?
First off, he identifies as a human being, so it's 2024. Watch your mouth.
Yeah.
Let's go to a $5 donation from Aiden Tremaine. He says, Jotty Barron should be the winner of the Thorpe Award. Who would y'all pick? JOHDA.
Well, I did vote my Lombardi Award ballot a couple days ago.
Who is it?
I'm not going to tell you live on here. I would say for me, for the Thorpe Award, it's going to be Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's going to be Travis Hunter.
$5 donation.
Especially if you don't win the Heisman. He don't win the Heisman, they're going to give him the Thorpe.
$5 donation from Derek Carson. It says, Bobby Petrino wants to be the head coach at Arkansas, and Arkansas fans want him to be the head coach.
Look,
Hashtag woo pig.
Sometimes you need a dirty dude for a dirty job. That's Mike Rowe.
$2 donation from Sco Doug. He says, glad to see Oregon win a game in different ways. Signs of a great team.
Yeah, that's what we said yesterday. Look, you played 8 straight weeks of conference play. Like, that is brutal. Like, with no bye week. I don't think any other team in the country had to do that.
And it was on the road, even though I don't know how Wisconsin gives up 42 to Iowa and then holds Oregon to what, 16 was it?
The year of chaos.
$5 donation from Jax. Appreciate it, Jax. Says, OHIO. Michigan sucks, David.
Nino like that. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, $2 donation from David's favorite Badger. Don't laugh at my pain, Cone. We almost won. Hashtag sad Badger. $5 donation from Mr. Street. Good to see you in here, man. Well, Blaine, I tried calling in to honor my bet, but my call wasn't taken. By rule, this means I no longer have to honor my bet. False. You have to call back in tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we'll get
That's your new punishment. You got to call in every day.
Yeah, every day for the rest of your life. $5 donation from RJ. He says, Blaine, you know how Auburn can win? Find a legal way to bring back Cam Newton and Nick Fairley back for one game. And Jake, your opinion on Tom Herman?
I mean, golly, Tom, you talk about a fall from grace, man. He Lindsay Lohan the hell out of this thing. I think Tom Herman is a good coordinator and not a good head coach. And we see that all the time. I think he's the Will Muschamp of offense.
All right, last donation, $5 donation from Wicked Brew. It says, Ole Miss has 2 losses by 6 points and 3 possession wins over Georgia, Arkansas, and South Carolina. Yeah, right on edge of the playoffs, right? And if I said that in a weird tone, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the energy.
You can't interpret
that was
text,
kind of
right?
like,
Yeah, like you sounded like at the beginning you sounded interested, then you sounded pissed off.
Yeah, I know.
Look, I think you go beat Florida on the road.
Look, you handle your business. I think
handle
Ole
your
Miss is
business,
in.
man.
All right, man. Everybody who donated today, guys, thank y'all so much. Let's get to this poll. Will Indiana, Kurt Signetti, Mom Spaghetti boys, pull off the upset against Ohio State? Yes or no?
God, I can't tell you what I want to happen because I don't think it's going to happen. Ohio State, I think they said 71%.
Yes or no?
Do it, David.
Yes.
Oh, no, 71%.
Yes. 55%.
No, 61. All right, I skipped a donation. Let's get to it really quick. Sorry, fellas.
God, figure
Sir,
it
with a
out.
$2 donation, insert loud screaming here. I love lamp.
Yeah, I don't know where did Britt get a trident? All right, we appreciate you guys. Make sure you check out Responsible Man, Shopify, Z-Biotics. Great calls once again today. Hit that subscribe button. And we want to wish a happy birthday to Ryan Reese, the audio guy.
Ryan?
Looking absolute stud. Good. Pass that.
Come
Good
on.
hands. Appreciate everything that he does for us. Got a great family as well, and like the rest of us, he's a family-oriented guy.
Happy birthday.
And, a guy we're really proud of him. Happy birthday! You're getting older, my friend.
God, you're so
and
old.
like the chances of Ryan being a young man anymore, we're going.
Get it out! I'm sick of it.
It's gonna be a great week.
God, can't wait to poison your Coca-Cola. Gone.